Well, let's go back to one of our lead stories with the Bangladesh's interim government wants to remove the words like secularism and socialism from the Bangladesh's constitution, and also suggested more amendments, particularly in the 15th Amendment of the Constitution. To discuss that and ramifications, we are joined by Ambassador Veena Sikri, former Indian High Commissioner to Bangladesh, on the show, joining us live from Delhi. And also from Delhi, let me quickly welcome Suhas Chakma, Director, Rights and Risk Analysis Group, or RRAG. All right, we're going to thank you very much, both of you, for joining us. Suhas, I'm going to quickly start with you. Because you have been tracking the developments, particularly the larger safety, security and national human rights concerns, particularly of the minorities in Bangladesh, very, very closely since the takeover by the interim government. What exactly do you make of the remarks by the Attorney General, not only on the words socialism and secularism, but the arguments that have been put forth seeking the changes in these in 15th Amendment of the Bangladesh Constitution?
I think one part is what kind of impact it has on the minorities. But even if these two particular words we are, in existence, are prevalent in the Constitution of Bangladesh, it's a fact that both the Hindus, Buddhists, and other minorities in any case face tremendous amount of violence or acts of violence on a regular basis. And when the state or the Attorney General comes up and makes this sort of arguments before the court, and it's amplified all over the country, then of course minorities become much more vulnerable. But I would say that this is more than that. I think this is a drama which is being enacted by Dr. Yunus. Dr. Yunus has no legal standing whatsoever to continue as the interim government chief advisor. He has no legal basis. And if the 15th Amendment of the Constitution is being challenged, the question is whether the Constitution of Bangladesh is enforced.
Okay.
If the Constitution of Bangladesh is enforced, then obviously he is not somebody who is or who has been granted powers under the Constitution of Bangladesh, and he is doing this for only one reason, that he needs some legal basis to stay in power for a longer period of time. So that's why they want to bring back the system of interim government by amending this particular 15th Amendment, and this will be done away with, because otherwise Yunus has no legal standing whatsoever.
Right, so because they've already, because the 90-day time period, that's what stipulates, that's the period by which the interim government should beyond that 90-day deadline, they cannot really rule the roost. But taking that point to Ambassador Sikri, now he has also highlighted, the Attorney General has highlighted the so-called constitutional contradictions, quote unquote, where he has justified his the whole opposition to the words secularism and socialism, and this has triggered widespread reactions, by the way. And the first one to react has been United States, Trump's administration. So, but it seems that all this is really falling to duffus. How do you see this panning out from here?
Well, first of all, I think we have to all accept and recognize that all the members of the interim government, including Professor Mohammed Yunus, have taken oath on the present constitution of Bangladesh. So their allegiance, as declared in the oath of office they have taken, is to the present constitution of Bangladesh. But immediately after taking oath, they are now trying to go back on that, and they're trying to absolutely call into question the very elements of the present constitution of Bangladesh, which include secularism and socialism and nationalism, Bengali nationalism as well. And I think this is quite a disaster, because by doing this, they are actually denying their own constitutional and legal status. So if they are saying that we want to change the constitution of Bangladesh, then they have to recognize that since they have taken oath on the present constitution of Bangladesh, they cannot do that. They can only do it if they call elections, and the elected government can then decide what they want to do with the constitution, and they want to amend it if they have the 2/3 majority, and so on and so forth. So I think that this very basic element is what is not being recognized. And in fact, the Attorney General, by arguing against the present constitution of Bangladesh, is only denigrating the very legal status that this interim government has, which is the oath of allegiance they've taken to the present constitution of Bangladesh. Number one. Number two, even if you take the concept of interim government, and the case in the court which is being argued today is about constitutional amendment number 15 being illegal and constitutional amendment number 13 which allowed caretaker government being legal. Okay, if you take that for a minute, then the thing is that how did the present judges who are listening to this case, how did they come into being? How did they take their position? Because when the interim government came to power, it's a kind of mobocracy that is prevailing since then. And the mobocracy, the mobs of Bangladesh, supposedly the students of Bangladesh, surrounded the judges, earlier judges, appointed legally by and forced them to resign. So how does the interim government have the authority to A, accept the resignations of the previous government, previous judges, and B, appoint new judges? This is a whole very messy constitutional situation, and I think the entire arguments being placed before the courts of Bangladesh really don't have any legitimacy because they are based on a wrong argument. You can't take oath of allegiance to one government and to one constitution and then say that no, now we want to change that constitution. That means you're denying your own credibility. So I think this is the first thing that we have to recognize. And secondly, even if we accept for a second that 13th constitution which they want to have restored is to restore back the caretaker government, that caretaker government under that previous constitution, 13th amendment, only allowed the interim government or the caretaker government to be in power for 90
days, right?
To have free and fair elections. But this government wants constitutional reforms. They want
so it's a ploy in a way, right? That 90-day reform point that I was discussing, sir, Suhas sir, kind of a ploy to really prolong elections because is there some sense of fair if the country goes to polls, it could be a different verdict altogether?
He doesn't want elections. I think Ma'am was very clear that he has created a mobocracy. What he is doing is anybody who opposes the interim government, they basically let the students go and attack those persons and they are forced to resign. So he has created a system where he is saying he will hold elections only after reforms are completed. Now the reforms are supposed to be completed by the end of this year for the 6 commissions which he has established. Now recently he has established 4 more commissions. So these commissions will take years to complete, and at the end of the day these commissions have no standing whatsoever because they are not set up by an elected government. They are just some technocrats appointing his pals, and they set up this commission, and tomorrow there is an elected government. The elected government will come and say, well, we have the mandate of the people, if they don't accept it, then we have to rewrite everything. So the entire commissions, the reforms which he is undertaking are actually is an exercise in futility, except the fact that anybody who opposes these reforms at this point of time will be seen as supporting Hasina's government, and they will be attacked as traitors in the country. So BNP itself is hesitant, and Mr. Yunus is actually completely relying on the Jamaat Islami. So he is running the country actually with the help of some of the students and the Jamaats. That's
Jamaats, yes. And they also slammed constitutional declaration, Ambassador Sikri, of Sheikh Mujibur Rahman as the father of the nation. And there is a justification for that as well. So, the legacy of Sheikh Mujibur Rahman.
Well, the legacy of Sheikh Mujibur Rahman, let me tell you, is recognized by all the people of Bangladesh. It's not a question of whether you give him a title of father of the nation or any other title, but his role in getting the independence of Bangladesh to actually come about is recognized by each and every one of Bangladesh. In fact, I would say that this government, who is now been sworn in under the chief advisor, Prasar Muhammad Yunus, when they started on 5th of August by bringing down the statues of Sheikh Mujibur Rahman and even the statues of Gurudev Rabindranath Tagore, who composed the national anthem of Bangladesh, they actually from the very first minute, they took the wrong step. And the people have actually recognized that this government is not interested in the people of Bangladesh. They only want a caliphate because they are the Jamaat-e-Islami and the Hizb ut-Tahrir, both Islamist groups banned by many countries. They want these two groups to be in power. They don't care for Mohammed Yunus at all. He actually is a puppet. He's not exercising any power at all. And he's also, I believe, very unwell, and that is another problem. But I think the problem is that the people are beginning easily to see through this. And today the slogan in Bangladesh is, "Aige bhalo chilo." It was better earlier.
Okay.
So this is another problem that we have to recognize, because you can't sort of have 50 years with the recognition that it was the Awami League and led by Sheikh Mujibur Rahman who brought in the independence of Bangladesh, and suddenly you say we want the independence but we don't want Sheikh Mujibur Rahman. So this unnatural argument is not actually being supported by the people at all, and many of the students who were there till the 5th of August have now been sidelined. And now you only have the Jamaat-e-Islami students, the Shibir, and other student groups who are from the Islamist groups. They are the ones who are ruling the roost. And the regular students who were there before the 5th of August have now dropped out. They're not there anymore in the power equations.
Okay. Mr. Chakma, now there are also reports of interim government cancelling the press accreditation cards of more than 100 journalists. And there's a bigger question on the freedom of press. And then this is something, I mean, you can do your politics, but freedom of press being meddled with?
Well, I think it's about 168, journalists who have been actually denied or whose press accreditations they removed. Till today, and I think there are about, we are counting today, we are preparing a note, it's about 78 journalists who are facing different kind of prosecution, and including war crime charges for merely reporting, which is absolutely insane. So if you look at the entire government of Bangladesh today, it's a fact that, there are atrocities and there are abuses under Hasina. But this government is actually in a way worse than Hasina. So, whatever the movement was about against dictatorship and etc., you could see that, this has come back, and I think it's an opportunity which Dr. Yunus had lost. I think the Bangladesh needed free, fair elections, including the Awami League. It's for the people to decide whether Awami League will remain in the country or not in power. But what the government of Bangladesh, the interim government is doing, that they have banned Chhatra League as a terrorist organizations. They're trying to ban Awami League, or not including one single party from the 14-party alliance. They have burned down the office of the Jatiya Party on 31st.
Yes.
So, no, not anarchy. You are trying to create a system where only Jamaat-e-Islami will remain, and I think they would have been successful. I think the only mistake, which I think Dr. Yunus said, it was like, after Trump came to power, it was like a solar eclipse for him. So, he has been put up by somebody, that's by the Americans, and now, the American government has changed, so he will possibly not be successful, but the aim was not to hold election. That's why even today Tariq Jia is not being allowed to come or return to the country.
All right. We'll leave it there. We'll see how this situation pans out from here legally also. But thank you very much, Mr. Chakma and Ambassador Sikri. Thank you very, very much for joining on this story and discussing the larger implications with us.